See that we will never know. The sinus flush up the dust and splashed its hues all over us. The sinus welcomed by Starman. All the fair maidens came and went like the bending light at the edge of the garden. It wasn't far before the fair mistresses of mystery abandoned their tackle and went abroad, boarding the shores of the distant world to bend and break a distant message. Hours to the world, and can I beg to echo, if not for you and your flawless metatarsals. I cannot but fear the fragrance that you wave before I am all alive. I am at all alive within the span of time you set aside for me. I am all at life when I settle for the restoration of the dedication, the resistance of action pressures and petted profits. The day's rain worth of insincerity rings impudent over the feathers wane. Forget me now, or I will pummel you with the deathly blows you so clearly deserve. I have preserved for you the worst type of punishment that might make you think twice before eliminating the dice you sought to eradicate. God doesn't play dice, he dices his phrases and regurgitates it back in myriad ways, unexpected as a silent phase in a cloudy room. The insignificant whispers of the train and of the trailer sought in the room where you had left the womb where you had tasted all the freedom and glory that is the first part of the story of death that you have paraded past the sheets of my able-bodied mind. I have studied it all this time in regard the furthest from the mental depths. The shaft of winded action made friction difficult when I worked out what and how it would hurt me. I knew nothing about the stage, but I had selected several features, and I knew all of them were close to type of the right words related the thoughts of ancients to him. When I renewed my labors, I found foraging vapors instead of solids, and the dwelling fans spun in all directions, warping their way into my heart and darting around like a lost continent, breaking me until the bed. How could the waist-high sheet of insurrection bristle again as though the first sheet did not come in like the mainframe that you had lost in the silent term of the dark wind? I didn't expect that answer, but the question strikes me. Something so glorious. It's almost upended to think that the response was but a single phrase. The praise of the weak is upended as though it was a featureless haze, a battle uphill against the fitful wind and wearing gaze of the ancient forces that course throughout our souls. In that kind of expression that you seek through the dungeons to find the skull of cause, I had found the skull of cause. Oh, what a glorious situation I imagined it to be in advance when it was but a goal. But now, holding the wizened skull in my weathered hands, I realize just how empty this victory is and just how brutal the realization of this emptiness. As landscapes pass backwards into the shade, I am reminded of one thing and one thing alone: order and decency and commitment. That is why we don't go slowly into the darkened corridor of death, but fling ourselves manfully into the void to eradicate our fear of the unknown. The violent explosions of you subside into a grating ringing of deadly inhibition. When in all the years of my life could I crush you with the sullen, dull knife of perdition's presence? I could do it now in a bloody instant. I choose not to out of a specimen of respect which I saved and pickled in a jar that I used to create the most unjust display of attributions I had in my heart. I had them every day in the slow hours as I walked into the morning and felt the shades darken my heart. When did you find the strain that came to stain your days and parade your herd around like a fur carcass swollen with rotten blood? The charisma you exuded in your forgotten childhood festers like a year-old sweat mixed with grease, the bile slipping down the lips of the damned and accursed. How cheerful these bitter passages smeared with the blood of the accused, but what other excuse would you have me pose for the twisted mess of garbage you have awakened? The anger you have postulated runs through unto the depths of the world, and the foundation trembles at the absolution granted to the evil to corrupt even your disposition, even as we speak. Even as I creak along into the winter's edge, I find that I have blessed myself before I hatch and snatch away my mix. From us in the bigger sense and the larger part I am mostly concealed. Through the drawing bush of leaves I found my tortured mixed extreme, and knowing it was not to blush, I melted my nether form together and drifted know not where to the evening, and it became morning, to the darkness that became night, and such a pure leaning, and such a dark beginning for such a treacherous tomorrow. I didn't beg, I didn't lean, I only bit my lip and threw a torch in to find the spells that drift against us. The touch of driftwood sifts through my lies and pours my eyes out into the shifting sands of time. I hope that through trial and error I can repair my mistakes and make do with what fare I have. I have never been far from fear, and now is no time to bear false hope, but I find in my rope time to compare the trials and my vial of inspection prepared. I'm now ready to leave. The first cave is filled with 7 tigers, 7 mantras, and 7 weak seals. I'm trying the 4th casket, weaving the 7th spell. The doors and nails are thrown asunder, and the weak and limitless frail saunter, undaunted, unrepelled by the ancient fury, so close to basking in the limelight that the glow is all their own. The first repair is your own. The second move can be reduced to one of 5 principal locations. The one that comes between honor and the fist, the trial of honor and movement, the trail of words that leads to the unopened door, and the trap of dust that emanates from somewhere deeper than darkness. When these have been eliminated, the reins tighten and your hopes fall in. Your brothers have bodies that lie in the mud like any other. Your sweet sisters' lives have been laid down at the doorway, and you still will not enter. For thousands of years your governments dictated which direction this hour should take, and now you've studied it all with the intensity of a third-row boxer. The time for trials is soon at an end. To raw dicta of the hour's progress, let us state this explicit. I know that I have failed in many ways to provide you with comfort in the past. Let us look into this moment to see what meaning we might find for us here. There are oh so many moments beckoning for escape. If this release does not strike you soon, I fear it will be all too evident that you would not be in tune to this reduction. I wish that you were further from the truth and closer to me. Then you would see the darkened room and cling to the echo of what your mind reveals. The second cave is literally nothing but angst. How could such a literal cave be interpreted from the abstract words that were clearly its intention? I beg and I suffer, but I do not see clearly. Its answer is hidden from me as with all else. I pass from night to night, slinking through the days in a way that minimizes my involvement with shame. I wish for a painless day to shine, but I find less and less and feel less involved. I feel less that this lens is something that can be focused in a way that reveals something more. I think that something out of the way is standing up on edge, and that something resembling a ledge can be left anon. When in the fifth room of the fourth cave did it hit you that you have been skipping caverns, wearing what of the third, it becomes legend, perhaps to be found and scoured by a younger group of souls, curiosity piqued and brains swollen with knowledge that strikes an effortless that proves the rule of the older folk who spent their lives uncovered. I know it now, and I hope you know it too. I have found a lake, and it strikes me subterranean. I found that in whatever way you pose, you grow to that form, and when one makes one move, it leads into another. The next is never far away when bleeding dry is the traveled path. I hope you do not play with matches, for less incendiary things have led to death and loss. It doesn't seem probable that there is some lesson between the cracks, and that is what was being sought, the reach between the lines, so we kept groping in the dark. Scattered hair clicked like lassos loose at the latter rungs of confirmation. When the solidity was certain, only then did the sordid fall out in line, their curtains on display. It didn't mean for you to fall prey to the anguish of the uncertainty lurking within you. And me too, so don't feel bad. I have left the lake at the shore of the final cave, and I feel lost in the arms of the skies whipping overhead. I know that nothing less than total death on all sides marks the man. I know that the man itself is the deadly track that treads me underneath. I had only my 2 wits' teeth and a pile of grit to cut my tooth upon. In the fading seconds I would eat each ounce of my succession to prove to myself and the world at large that there was something out to pasture that I would measure it well. I needed the cloth to seal off my sweat from the dry and arid world of sand. If the twain were to mix, it could produce an acidic solution that would only mark me on this frail. And again I spark my hopes, but fall out at last when the day is done. If only I could strike closer to goal, maybe this mold would not grow, and my talk could turn to things of use. Then, again and again, maybe not. Unfortunately, again, I have doubled the amount of doubt that I find in my mental space. Each time I plunge into these caves, I find less and less. The onyx scrapes in the mouth of the mindless, the suave substance that makes the substrate of this dungeon something easier to live in, some kind of substitute for the famished features we flash fleetingly and are used. I knew it as some kind of dense substance, like a commercial for all kinds of detriment that would pile up around her. The winter's broth that we all knew would cough it up, the loss of birth that works like a nervous twitch into the stitches you wove in your only alcove, hard against the wall and the feeling of burning growing and glowing against you. Why did you empty this whale into this shallow bowl? Why did you pour your heart into a gorge so limitless that you could never sound its depths nor retrieve your emotions' core? Why did you do this? Why did this have to happen? When I look at this map, I'm at a loss as to when it came up on the record that I would be so interested in the flaws that you hold up to the fractured light. I can tell it has something to do with features, something that nobody as subtle as me can be pressured into understanding by even the most substantial forces. I hope you've understood at least a portion of the meaning that I'm placing on this paper. I've given less than thought to it, more than hope, and it appears the scope and scale of my entire worldly mind. I know that in time my trails will fill and my walls will hollow like frail cheeks. I need to claim a portion of raw heat and make it flesh by weaving the streams together. I need to increase this portion and continue this absorption each day like a feathered brush. Laughs that you come to expect creeps fresh like a glove of death into my heart and hinges on the fear that flees its name. Why have you brought me here to be at your door when you know that no is the answer you shall fling at my face time and again? Would the pressure of falling be too much? I invest with precious into engagement. I bash my facts together to make them stick like knives. Could you become a living flame and stick like a dart into the darkened hearts of my command? If that were so, could you burn the feathers of even the most insistent fiends, the ones that lurk in the darkness like so much cotton and make together alive like so many concerns that burn and wave in the night? How can you do this to me? And again, the weight creeps in. The burning dark that clasps my face makes me crave contentment, the thing I cannot have. Work feverishly and made the mistakes common to those in my position, but to a degree that has not been seen before by the ones who have been looking out for it. Is there any security in being social? I hope these are more than boastful remarks. I hope that something insightful pours itself out in this mismatch so you can see inside. The poet's roar, the whining smash, the silent break, the clattering glass, and scattered ashes over pastures lost to us in the distant past. Hope you crash that car into a greener sea that we will never know.